Commander Jack Mercer sat quietly inside a strange glass room. The walls were smooth and bright, glowing with a soft blue light. There were no doors, no windows, and no way to escape. He had been inside this alien prison for many days now, or maybe weeks. He wasn't sure. Time felt strange here. Outside the glass, tall creatures moved around. They were not like humans. Their skin was silver and smooth, and their eyes glowed like small suns. They had long arms and thin faces that never smiled. They spoke to each other in soft, musical sounds Jack couldn't understand. Jack watched them carefully, but they never looked at him, except for one. She was different. The alien woman always stood at the edge of the room, watching Jack. Her eyes were a softer shade of gold, and there was something in them that Jack didn't see in the others, something like curiosity, or maybe kindness. Jack leaned his head against the glass wall and sighed. His body was tired. His mind was full of questions. Why did they keep me alive? He wondered. What do they want from me? Every other human ship that had met these aliens, the Scifi, as he had learned they were called, had been destroyed. No survivors, no mercy. But for some reason, they had captured him. As Jack sat there, thinking of Earth and his people, the doorless wall in front of him suddenly opened. A soft blue light shone in the empty space, and the alien woman stepped inside. Jack sat up straight, surprised. It was the first time anyone had entered his glass prison. She walked slowly toward him, her long silver robe trailing behind her. Her eyes were calm but searching, as if she was trying to see inside his mind. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just stood there, watching him. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft and strange but clear. "You are not like the others," she whispered. "You feel different." Jack blinked. He wasn't sure he had heard her right. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice rough from not speaking for so long. The alien woman tilted her head, as if thinking carefully about her words. "The others we met, they were full of fear and anger. But you," she paused, "you are calm. You think, you feel." Jack stared at her, unsure what to say. "Well," he said after a moment, "I guess humans are more than just fear and anger." The woman's eyes softened. She stepped closer to him, looking at him like he was something she had never seen before. "I have watched you," she said. "You do not scream. You do not fight the walls. You sit and wait. Why?" Jack gave a small, tired smile. "Because sitting here, thinking, is better than losing hope," he said. "If I stop thinking, I'm already gone." The woman looked surprised, as if she had never thought about that before. "Hope," she repeated softly. "A strange word." Jack nodded. "Maybe to you, but to humans, hope is what keeps us alive, even when everything is lost." The alien woman sat down across from him, folding her legs under her silver robe. "My name is Ares," she said gently. Jack raised an eyebrow. "I'm Jack," he said. Ares smiled slightly. A tiny smile, but real. "Jack," she said, as if testing the word. They sat in silence for a while. Jack looked at her, trying to understand her. She was the first Scifi who had spoken to him, the first one who didn't look at him like an animal in a cage. Finally, Ares spoke again. "My people fear yours," she said. "They say humans are dangerous, wild. But you make me question that." Jack frowned. "Why do they fear us? You have ships and weapons far beyond anything we have." Ares looked down, her glowing eyes dim for a moment. "Because you feel," she said softly. "Because you fight for what you believe. My people, we lost that long ago." Jack leaned forward, curious now. "What do you mean?" he asked. But before Ares could answer, a sharp sound filled the air. A cold, metallic chime. Ares stood up quickly, her face suddenly serious. "I should not be here," she said. "Wait," Jack said, standing too. "Why did you come?" She looked at him for a long time. Then she said, almost in a whisper, because I wanted to know if what they say about humans is true. And now, I think I see something they do not. Before Jack could ask more, she stepped back, and the wall closed behind her like it had never opened. Jack stood alone again, but now something was different. For the first time since his capture, he felt a spark of hope. Somewhere out there, in this cold, alien world, was someone who saw him, really saw him. And maybe, just maybe, that would change everything. Commander Jack Mercer sat in his glass cell, still thinking about Ares. Her soft voice and strange words kept echoing in his mind. You are not like the others. You feel different. What had she meant? And why had she risked speaking to him? For days, Jack had only seen cold faces and heard strange alien voices. None of the other Gyrathi had shown interest in talking to him. They just watched him like a creature in a zoo. But Ares was different. As Jack sat lost in thought, the wall opened again, silently, like before. Ares stepped inside. This time, she was holding a small silver object in her hand. It looked like a thin tablet, glowing faintly. Jack stood up slowly. Back so soon? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Ares gave a small smile. I had questions, she said simply. Jack crossed his arms. Questions about what? Ares walked closer, sitting down without fear. She held up the tablet. This is a learning device. It holds information about many worlds, many species. But humans, you confuse us. Jack sat down across from her, watching her carefully. What's so confusing about us? Ares looked straight at him, her golden eyes curious and serious. You are weaker than us. Your ships are slower. Your weapons are old. And yet, you fight. You never stop. You refuse to give up. Why? Jack smiled a little. That's easy, he said, because we believe in something. We believe in freedom, in hope. Ares tilted her head. Hope, she said again, like she was still trying to understand the word. Jack nodded. Yes, hope that tomorrow will be better. That we can win, even when things look dark. Ares frowned slightly, looking at her tablet. My people do not understand this. We are taught to follow logic, to avoid feelings. Feelings make mistakes. Logic makes us strong. Jack leaned forward. But does it? He asked softly. Does logic give you a reason to live? A reason to fight for something more than just survival? Ares was quiet for a moment. Then she said, we survive because we remove danger. Anything that feels too much is dangerous. Jack shook his head. Maybe that's why you fear us. Because humans feel. And that makes us strong in ways you can't understand. Ares looked at him for a long time. Then she said, some of us wonder if we have lost something important. Maybe feelings are not always weakness. Jack gave a small laugh. Well, you might be right about that, he said. Sometimes feelings are what push us to do the impossible. Ares stood up, her tablet glowing softly in her hand. I will think about what you said, she whispered. You make me question what I was taught. She turned to leave, but Jack quickly said, wait, why are you really here, Ares? Why are you talking to me? Ares paused at the door. Because, she said quietly, I see something in you that my people have forgotten. Maybe you are not like the others. And maybe, I don't want to forget what it means to feel. With that, she walked out, and the wall closed behind her. Jack sat alone again, but now his mind was racing. He could tell Ares was important. She was not just any Gyrathi. If he could reach her, maybe he could reach others. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of this. The next day, Ares returned. This time, she sat down with Jack right away. I have more questions, she said seriously. Jack smiled. Ask away. Ares looked at him, her eyes sharper now, filled with real curiosity. When you fight, and you know you might lose, why do you keep going? Why not surrender? Jack thought for a moment. Because sometimes losing while fighting for what's right is better than living under something wrong, he said. Some things are worth dying for. Ares looked down at her tablet, typing something quickly. My people would never understand that, she whispered. We do not fight if the chance of success is low. Jack leaned closer. And that's why you'll never win against humans, he said quietly. Because even if we have nothing left, we fight until the end. Ares looked up at him, her eyes wide. Maybe that is why they fear you, she said softly. Jack nodded. Maybe. Ares stood up again, but this time she hesitated before leaving. There are others like me, she said carefully, others who think as I do. But we must be careful. If the council learns we question them. She didn't finish the sentence, but Jack understood. Then let me help you, he said quickly. Together, maybe we can change things. Ares gave him a small but real smile, the first one Jack had ever seen from any Girathi. Perhaps, she said, perhaps there is still a way. As she left, Jack felt a spark of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, real hope. Maybe he was not alone after all. Commander Jack Mercer sat on the cold floor of his glass prison, waiting. He knew Ares would come again. She always did now. And every time, their talks became deeper, more serious. Finally, the wall opened, and Ares walked in, her silver robe flowing behind her. She looked around carefully before sitting down beside Jack. You are right, Jack, she said softly. Some things are worth fighting for. Jack raised an eyebrow. That's a change, he said with a small smile. Ares nodded. Yes, I have been thinking much since we talked. I told you there are others like me. Others who believe our people have lost something important, something human. Jack leaned forward, curious. How many others? Ares looked down, her hands folded in her lap. Not many, but enough to hope, enough to start something. Jack felt his heart beat faster. This was a chance. Maybe he could use this group to find a way to escape, or even stop the Girathi from hurting more humans. Can you take me to them? He asked carefully. Ares hesitated. It's dangerous, she whispered. If the council finds out, they will punish us. Maybe worse. Jack gave her a steady look. Ares, if we don't try, nothing will change. You said yourself, your people are afraid of humans because we feel. Because we fight for what we believe in. You believe in something now too, so fight for it. Ares looked at him for a long moment. Then she stood up. Follow me, she said. The wall opened, and for the first time since his capture, Jack stepped out of his glass prison. Ares led him through long, shining halls. Strange lights floated above them, and smooth walls curved around like waves. They walked quickly, and Ares kept looking back to make sure no one was following. Finally, she stopped in front of a hidden door. She placed her hand on a glowing panel, and the door slid open. Inside was a small room. A few other Girathi were waiting there. They turned quickly when they saw Jack. Some looked afraid. Others looked angry. One of them, a tall male with bright silver eyes, stepped forward. Why is a human here? He asked sharply. Ares raised her hand. He is not like the others, she said firmly. He understands us, and he can help. The tall male frowned. Help? Help us do what? Get ourselves killed. Jack stepped forward. My name is Jack Mercer, he said calmly. I don't want to hurt anyone. But if you're looking for change, if you want to feel again, I can help you. Humans can help you. Another Girathi, a woman with pale gold eyes, spoke softly. But how? Our people do not listen to us. They say emotions make us weak. Jack shook his head. That's where they're wrong, he said. Emotions make you strong. They give you a reason to live, to fight for something better. The group was quiet for a moment. Then the tall male spoke again. My name is Varin, he said. I lead these few. We call ourselves the Awakened. But what you ask is not easy, human. To fight our own kind is dangerous. Jack nodded. I know, he said, but if you don't fight, nothing will change. And your people will keep destroying anyone who is different, including humans. Varian looked at Ares. You trust him? Ares nodded firmly. Yes, I do. Varian looked back at Jack. Then maybe you can help us. But first, you must prove that we can trust you. Jack raised an eyebrow. And how do I do that? Varian turned to a screen on the wall. There is something you must see. The screen lit up, showing an image of Earth, Jack's home. Our leaders are planning to attack your planet, Varian said quietly. They see humans as a creek that must be destroyed. Jack felt cold fear grip his heart. When? He asked, his voice low. Varian shook his head. Soon. Very soon. Jack's hands clenched into fists. Then we don't have much time, he said. Ares stepped closer to him. That is why I brought you here, Jack, she said. We need your help to stop them. Jack looked around at the small group. They were scared, but there was also a spark of hope in their eyes. The same hope he felt growing inside himself. All right, Jack said firmly. Then let's stop them. Together. The group nodded, and for the first time, Jack felt like he wasn't alone. They had a long road ahead, but now they had something more powerful than fear, a reason to fight. Commander Jack Mercer sat quietly with the awakened, the small group of Girathi who wanted to change their world. Around him, the silver-skinned aliens looked serious and worried. Jack looked at Varian, the leader of the group. We need to stop that attack on Earth, Jack said firmly. If we don't, my people will die. Varian nodded but looked uneasy. It will not be easy, Varian said. The High Council has already sent the battle fleet. They move fast and do not listen to reason. Jack clenched his fists. There has to be a way. You said you wanted to change things. Now is the time. Ares stepped forward, her golden eyes calm but strong. There is one way, she said softly. We must speak to the High Council directly. Make them see that humans are not a danger. Another member of the Awakened, a young man named Ciro, shook his head quickly. They won't listen to us, he said. They will call us traitors. Jack stood up, looking around the room. What if we give them a reason to listen? He said. Varian frowned. What do you mean? Jack took a deep breath. Take me to them. Let me speak to the High Council. Let me show them that humans and Girathi don't have to be enemies. There was silence in the room. The Awakened looked at each other nervously. That is dangerous, Ares said softly. If they reject you, they will execute you. Jack looked her in the eyes. I know, he said, but if I don't try, Earth will be lost. I'm willing to take that risk. Varian sighed and rubbed his hands together. There may be a way to get you to the council hall, he said slowly, but it is heavily guarded. If we are caught, Jack nodded. Then we'll have to be careful. After a long pause, Varian finally said, Very well. We will help you reach them. The Awakened gathered around a small table. Ciro pulled out a glowing map of the city. The council hall is here, Ciro said, pointing to a tall tower in the center. But there are guards on every level. Jack studied the map carefully. Is there a way in they won't expect? Ciro hesitated, then nodded. There is an old transport tunnel beneath the city. It hasn't been used in years. If we can open it, we could reach the hall without being seen. Jack smiled. Then that's our way in. Varian nodded. We'll need a distraction to pull some of the guards away, he said. Ares and I can handle that. Jack looked at Ares, surprised. Are you sure? He asked. She gave him a soft smile. I said I believed in this, Jack. Now I will prove it. Jack felt a spark of hope. These aliens, once cold and distant, were now risking everything to help him, to help Earth. Then let's do this, Jack said firmly. Later that night, Jack and Ciro moved quietly through the dark tunnels under the city. The walls were smooth and glowing faintly, but the tunnels were empty and silent. This tunnel leads straight to the hall, Cyril whispered. We are close. Jack nodded, keeping his eyes sharp. Good. Let's move. As they crept forward, Jack's mind was racing. He thought of Earth, of his people. He had to succeed. There was no other choice. Finally, they reached a large door. Cyril placed his hand on a panel, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. There it is, Cyril said. Ahead of them, the great council hall stood tall and shining. Jack could see Girathi guards standing near the entrance. Suddenly, alarms began to sound in the distance. That's Varen and Eris, Cyril said quickly. They've started the distraction. Jack took a deep breath. Then let's go. They moved fast, staying in the shadows. The guards were running toward the sound of alarms, leaving the entrance less protected. When they reached the door, Cyril tapped on another panel, and it opened. Good luck, Jack, Cyril whispered. Jack nodded and stepped inside. The council chamber was huge. Tall walls of silver glass rose around him, and in the center, on high chairs, sat the High Council, 5 Girathi leaders with sharp, glowing eyes. They stared at Jack in silence. Human, one of them said coldly. Why are you here? Jack stood tall and looked them in the eyes. I came to speak for my people, he said loudly and clearly. I came to ask for peace. The council members looked at each other. One of them, a woman with bright silver skin, spoke sharply. Your people are a danger. We cannot allow you to grow strong. Jack shook his head. You're wrong, he said. We may be different, but that doesn't mean we have to be enemies. We can learn from each other. The council leader narrowed his eyes. Why should we trust you? Jack took a deep breath and said, Because if you destroy Earth, you will only make more enemies. But if you choose peace, you gain a friend, one that feels, hopes, and fights for what's right. The room was silent. The council members whispered among themselves. Finally, one of them looked at Jack and said, Perhaps we have much to think about. Jack stood firm. I hope you choose the right path, he said quietly. As guards moved toward him, Jack held his head high. Whatever happened next, he knew he had done all he could, and maybe, just maybe, it would be enough to save his world. Commander Jack Mercer stood tall in front of the High Council. His heart was beating fast, but he didn't show his fear. He knew everything now depended on what he said, and what they chose to do. The council members whispered to each other in low voices. Their glowing eyes watched Jack carefully. Finally, the leader of the council, a tall Girathi with silver-blue skin, stood up. His name was Joran, and he was known as one of the most powerful leaders of their kind. You speak of peace, human, Joran said in a strong voice. But your people build weapons. They fight. Why should we believe you want peace? Jack took a deep breath. Yes, we fight, he said clearly, but only to survive. You attacked us first. You took me as a prisoner. Yet, here I am, trying to stop a war, not start one. The room went silent. Jack's words made some council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Another council member, a woman named Vila, spoke next. Our scientists say humans are dangerous because of their emotions. You are ruled by anger, fear, and greed. Jack shook his head. That's not all we are, he said firmly. Yes, we feel anger and fear, but we also feel love, hope, and courage. Emotions are not our weakness. They are our strength. They give us a reason to protect others, to build, and to dream. Some council members seemed to think about his words. Others looked doubtful. Joran stepped closer to Jack, his sharp eyes fixed on him. If we believe you, what would humans offer in return for peace? Jack looked around the room. We offer friendship, he said. We offer a chance to learn from each other. You are strong in ways we are not, but we are strong in ways you do not understand. Together, we could be stronger. Joran's face was hard to read. He turned to speak quietly with the other council members. Jack stood quietly, waiting. As they talked, Ares and Varin were hiding outside the council chamber. They had taken a great risk bringing Jack here. Now they waited, hoping their plan would work. "Do you think they'll listen to him?" Ares whispered. Varin shook his head slowly. "I don't know," he said. "The council fears change. But maybe Jack's words will reach them." Back inside, Joran turned to face Jack again. "Human," he said in a deep voice, "your words are strong. But words are easy. We need proof." Jack frowned slightly. "What kind of proof?" he asked. Joran raised a hand. "If you can stop the Awakened from causing trouble in our city, then we will listen to you. Show us that you seek peace, not rebellion." Jack's eyes widened. "But the Awakened are the ones trying to help me," he said. Joran nodded slowly. "Yes, and they are causing fear among our people. If you truly want peace, you will stop them. Show us that you can bring calm, not chaos." Jack realized what was happening. The council wanted to test him, or perhaps trap him. But he also knew this was his chance to prove humans and Jarathi could work together. "I will talk to them," Jack said carefully, "but I will not hurt them. They only want what's right." Joran gave a small nod. "Very well. We will wait for your answer. But if you fail, we will continue with the attack on Earth." Jack's heart sank, but he stood tall. "Then I won't fail," he said. The guards led Jack out of the council hall. Once outside, Ares and Varin quickly came to him. "What happened?" Ares asked anxiously. Jack told them everything. Ares looked worried. "So they want you to turn against us," she said softly. Jack shook his head. "No, I won't do that. But we have to find another way. A way to show them we are serious about peace." Varin thought for a moment. "There is one way," he said slowly. "There's an ancient Jarathi custom, a public challenge. If you can stand before the people and speak your truth, the council must listen." Jack looked surprised. "Will they allow that?" Varin gave a small smile. "They will not want to. But if the people demand it, they have no choice." Jack nodded, feeling hope grow in his chest. "Then let's make the people listen." Ares looked at Jack with admiration. "You are brave, Jack Mercer," she said. Jack gave a small smile. "No, Ares. I'm just doing what anyone would do to save their home. And now, to save yours too." The three of them walked together through the glowing city, ready to take the next step. Jack knew it wouldn't be easy. The council was powerful. But now he had friends, and together they would fight for a future where humans and Jarathi could stand side by side. Hope was alive. The next day, Jack Mercer stood on a high platform in the center of the Jarathi city. Around him, thousands of Jarathi gathered, their glowing eyes watching in silence. It was the first time a human had ever stood there. Beside Jack, Ares and Varin stood proudly. They had helped him reach this point. Now it was up to Jack to speak, to change the hearts of a people who had always feared humans. Jack took a deep breath. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his voice steady as he began to speak. "I know many of you look at me and see a danger," Jack said, his voice echoing through the city square. "You see a human, and you think I have come to hurt you, but that is not why I'm here." The crowd listened, quiet but curious. "I came here as a prisoner," Jack continued. "Your council took me because they fear humans, but while I have been here, I have learned something. You fear us because we are different, because we feel things strongly: love, anger, hope." He paused, searching the crowd with his eyes. "But I have seen something in you too," Jack said. "I have seen that you also feel, though some try to hide it. You feel fear, yes, but you also feel hope. You feel the desire for a better world." A soft murmur went through the crowd. Ares looked at Jack, her heart full of hope. She could see that his words were reaching them. Jack stepped forward on the platform. "I know your council wants to destroy my world. They think that by doing so, they will be safe. But I ask you, Is fear a good reason to destroy others, or can we choose another way? Some of the Girathi in the crowd nodded slightly. Others still looked unsure. We do not have to be enemies, Jack said firmly. We can be friends. We can learn from each other. You have great knowledge and power. Humans have heart and courage. Together, we could build a future where no one has to be afraid. Suddenly, from the edge of the crowd, a voice called out, "Why should we trust you, human? How do we know this is not a trick?" Jack turned toward the voice. It was an older Girathi man, his silver eyes sharp and doubtful. Jack nodded. "I understand why you are afraid," Jack said. "But I ask you this, if I wanted to harm you, would I stand here alone before you all? Would I risk my life to speak for peace?" The old man was silent, thinking. Varin stepped forward beside Jack. "I believe in him," Varin said loudly. "I once thought as you did, but I have seen the truth. This human has risked everything for peace, even when he had nothing to gain." Ares also spoke, her voice calm and strong. "I was taught that humans are dangerous," she said, "but Jack has shown me that humans care. They fight for what is right. They feel love and kindness. He has taught me to hope again." More murmurs moved through the crowd. Some Girathi were now looking at Jack with new eyes, not as a threat, but as a chance for something better. Jack looked around and raised his voice once more. "I ask you to think of the future. Do you want a future filled with war and fear, or a future where we can share knowledge, where our children can live without hate?" A young Girathi girl near the front looked up at her mother and whispered, "Mother, I don't want a war. I want to meet a human one day." Her mother hugged her tightly but looked up at Jack, her face softening. The crowd was changing. Just then, loud footsteps echoed as members of the High Council arrived at the edge of the square. Their faces were hard, but even they could see how the people were listening to Jack. Shoren, the council leader, stepped forward, his sharp eyes watching Jack carefully. "You speak well, human," Joran said, "but words are not enough. What will you do if we agree to peace? How will you prove your people want the same?" Jack looked at Joran with steady eyes. "Let me return to Earth," Jack said. "Let me speak to my leaders. If they agree to peace, we will send a message to you. A message of friendship." Joran was silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, "You ask for much, human, but perhaps it is time to listen. The people have heard your words. Now we must decide." He turned to the other council members, and they began to speak quietly among themselves. Jack stepped back beside Ares and Varin. "You did well, Jack," Ares whispered. "I think you gave them something to think about." Jack smiled softly. "I hope so, because if we don't find peace, a terrible war will come." Varin looked at the council. "Now we wait for their answer." Jack nodded. "Yes, but no matter what happens, we gave them a chance to choose hope over fear." As the sun began to set over the glowing city, Jack looked at the sky, wondering what choice the Girathi would make, and hoping that somewhere, a better future was beginning to take shape. Jack Mercer stood still as the High Council whispered among themselves. His heart pounded in his chest, but he remained calm. Ares and Varin stood beside him, their expressions tense. Thousands of Girathi had gathered to hear Jack's words, and now they'd waited for the council's decision. Soren, the leader of the High Council, finally turned to face Jack. His silver-blue eyes were unreadable. "We have discussed your request, human," Joran said in a deep voice. "Your words have stirred something among our people." Jack held his breath. The council leader continued, "Many still fear humans. They believe you are dangerous and unpredictable. But," Joran paused for a moment, then spoke again, "there are others who believe you bring a new path, a path that may lead to something better." The crowd murmured in surprise. Some of the Girathi nodded, their glowing eyes filled with curiosity. Jack swallowed and spoke with steady confidence. "All I ask is a chance," he said. Let me return to Earth and bring a message of peace. Let us end this war before it begins." Joran studied Jack carefully. Then he slowly nodded. "We will allow it," he said. "But know this, human. If your leaders refuse peace, we will have no choice but to defend ourselves." Jack nodded firmly. "I understand," he said, "but I will do everything I can to make sure we choose peace." Ares let out a breath of relief. Varian placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "You did it," Varian said. Jack turned to them with a small smile. "No, we did it." The next morning, Jack stood before a Scifi spacecraft, ready to leave. It was sleek and silver, glowing faintly under the rising sun. A group of Scifi engineers had prepared it for his journey back to Earth. Ares stood in front of Jack, her golden eyes filled with emotion. "I never thought I would trust a human," she said softly. "But now, I do." Jack smiled. "I never thought I'd have an alien as a friend," he said. "But here we are." She chuckled lightly, but there was sadness in her voice. "Do you think your people will listen to you?" Jack's face grew serious. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I have to try." Varian stepped forward and gave Jack a respectful nod. "If your leaders accept peace, we will be ready to talk," he said. "But if they refuse—" Jack understood the unspoken words. "If they refuse, then I'll try harder," Jack said, "because war is not the answer." Ares placed something in Jack's hand. He looked down and saw a small silver stone with ancient Scifi markings. "It's a symbol of trust," she explained. "If your people accept peace, show this to the council when you return." Jack closed his fingers around the stone. "I won't let you down," he promised. With one last look at his friends, Jack stepped into the spacecraft. The door closed behind him, and the engines hummed to life. As the spacecraft flew through the endless void of space, Jack stared out of the window. In the distance, he could see Earth, his home, blue and full of life. For a moment, he thought about what would happen next. Would his leaders listen? Would humanity choose peace? Jack knew it wouldn't be easy. Fear was a powerful thing, and many people would not trust the Scifi. But he also knew that hope was stronger. As the spacecraft entered Earth's atmosphere, Jack tightened his grip on the silver stone. No matter what happened, he would fight for peace. Because that was what made humans special. They didn't just fight wars. They fought for a better future, and Jack Mercer was ready to fight for that future.